Hi there, welcome to this week's focus. This week's focus is on communication, and this is your mindset minute. This time, communication is so important. This has effects on every area of your life. This has effects on your business. This has effects on, if you sell something on Kijiji or wherever it is. This has effects on the home purchases you make, and the way you negotiate, not only with purchases but with your kids. So whether it's relationship, whether it's business, whether it's real estate investing, whatever it is, communication has an enormous impact on all these areas. So what I want to focus is on just some tips that you can get, that you can pick up from me. And if you practice these, and that's going to be your homework for this week, is if you practice these, you're going to get so much out of this. You're going to literally change your life when you get this. So a little bit of background. Again, my background is psychology. I remember going through my degree, and it was counseling psychology. And I remember as I was going through this degree, my prof getting me to get together with another student and practice these things. And then he asked me to go back home and practice these things with my wife. And I remember being really like, this is going to be so weird, I thought to myself. And yet when I did it, both with the classmate as well as with my wife later on, I found that our relationship went deeper right away. And I wasn't even doing all that good a job of this, but just the effort to improve your communication will make a massive difference in the people around you. So I encourage you to practice these things. Where we're going to start is I want you to actually pause this video. I want you to go to YouTube, and I want you to type into YouTube, "It's not about the nail." It's not about the nail. And I want you to watch that video. It's just a couple minutes long. And then I want you to come back. Okay, so hit pause right now. I'll still be here, don't worry. And come back and you can continue this, all right? So if you've watched that, probably there are two things that jump out to you. One is, there are stereotypes happening there, right? There's the guy and girl stereotypes, the guy not listening, the girl just wanting to be heard. But the other thing that usually pops out to the people that I talk to is, but she still does need to remove the nail. Listen. This is what's so important about communication. If you paid attention to that video, what you will notice is that what was important was not that the nail was removed. She knows the nail needs to be removed. Come on, give me a break, right? The problem is not whether the nail needs to be removed or not. The problem is how she feels heard. And as soon as she felt heard, look at what happened in the relationship. And this is, it's just a video, right? But this happens in real relationships, real life. When your teenagers or your kids or your prospects, so if you're in sales, or if you're the person that's selling you their home, or if the money partner that you're getting on board with you, or your husband or wife or partner or friend or whoever it is, it doesn't matter who it is, if they feel heard, everything changes. And I'm going to ask you right now, if you pay attention to yourself for just a minute, how often do you actually feel heard? How often do you actually feel understood? How many times has that happened in the last week? Oh, it hasn't happened? Oh, how about the last month? Still hasn't happened? What about the last year? The last decade? Listen, this is something that doesn't happen very often. There are very few people who actually ever listen to my heart, okay? So I'm careful about what I share with people in one-on-one situations. I'll share things, but I'm careful. I guard myself, because I don't trust other people to actually be listening. In most conversations, people are thinking about the next thing to say, not listening. And so it's not safe to share who we are with others. So when somebody actually does listen in a really unique way, it changes everything. There's a really deep connection. You can make a deep connection with an absolute stranger in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes, if you listen really well. And this is why this is such a powerful skill, okay? So I'm going to go through a few things here. So number one, and so this is all under the heading of active listening, okay? This is what I'm talking about today. Under active listening, first thing you need to be aware of, and you've heard this before, I'm sure, is that body language is the biggest communicator. Body language is the biggest communicator. So, even when you watch me communicating via video, I'm recording this, no one's around me, I'm in my office, the mountains are in the background, like, I'm not around anybody right now. And yet, what am I communicating just by the way I interact? I'm imagining that I'm speaking with you right now, which is why it's a little more real. But I'm excited about what I'm talking about, and that's obvious. I'm passionate about what I'm talking about. That communicates something. It means I'm excited about you. And I am. I'm legitimately, that comes with integrity. I'm excited about you learning these skills, and that comes across in my body language. So how can you communicate with somebody? So very simple things. How can you communicate with somebody that you are engaged and that you're safe to somebody? Now, again, you've heard of most of these. I'm going to repeat them because I want you to practice them, because just knowing the information doesn't mean you actually do it. Two things. One, look people in the eye. Now, you got to be careful about cultures here. There are certain cultures. I lived in China for a while where looking into the eyes of somebody that's kind of above me and in the hierarchy would be rude in some ways, okay? There are certain First Nations cultures. There are certain other groups of people that it's not as polite to look somebody in the eyes. But in North America, for the most part, in general society, in general culture, when we look someone in the eyes when they're talking to us, it means we're engaged. We're not thinking. We're listening. All right? And that's a really important point. So practice looking at somebody's eyes, not in a creepy way. Don't gaze into their eyes as if you gaze into your lover's eyes, but be paying attention, okay? Watch, and you can even be intense. I'm a really intense listener, okay? I'm intense in a lot of things I do, but I'm intense when I look at some people. I've even been told sometimes, Mark, can you not look at me right now? You're too intense. So I've had to listen to people and change how my body language is, okay? I've had to be less intense when I'm listening to people. Have a curious stance. By that, I'm not meaning how you stand. I'm talking about how you are engaged with somebody. So the way you're curious is you look into somebody's eye. Often you just lean in a little bit, okay? When you lean in, when somebody's saying like something really important and you lean in and your eyes kind of get big and you show curiosity, it shows that you're paying attention. It shows that the little nuances of what they're talking about are important to you and you're paying attention. So you can do that. Here's a third thing you can do. Ask the people in your life what you do with your body language that makes them uncomfortable or helps to know whether you're listening or not. Or ask them whether you're a good listener or not. Do these things with people around you, and they're going to give you great information. I'm going to tell you another thing that I discovered when I was younger. I typically, when I'm really engaged, when I'm really passionate about something, I shove out my chin, okay? I'm engaged, like I said, I'm pretty intense at times, and I typically like engage and I shove out my chin a little bit. That typically was read by people around me as aggressive. By my family, they often said, Mark, you stick out your chin, you're trying to be so aggressive. And actually, for the most part, I wasn't trying to be aggressive. Sometimes I came across that way when I wasn't actually trying to be aggressive. I was simply passionate. And that was one way that I was enacting my passion. Okay? So if there's something like that people are misreading, you need to be aware of it. And the more you are aware of it, the more you can change it. So I typically don't shove out my head anymore, okay? Or at least I'm careful in the way I do it. I engage with people in a different way. Next time you see me one-on-one, check to see if when I'm really engaged with people, I'm shoving out my head. And you can catch me on it. Keep me accountable for this. The next thing that I want to talk about is the kind of questions you ask. So this is tip number 2. First is body language. Tip number 2 is the kind of questions you ask. There are 2 basic types of questions. Actually, there are more, okay? So I'll give you a few different groupings. One type of question is a question where you are you're curious and you actually want to learn something. Another question is where you're not trying to learn anything. You're trying to shove somebody in a hole or trying to prove a point, okay? So the question where you're like, wait a second, you didn't know where when you're asking a question like that, but pay attention to my body language and my question, you're not trying to learn anything. You're accusing somebody of something. So what's that going to do? That's going to put somebody's back up, right? They're going to be put on the defensive, and they might take an offensive, an offensive position after that. So be careful how you're asking your questions. Are you curious, or are you just trying to teach somebody something? Be careful about teaching people things. It's always more important and always more helpful to somebody if you are asking them questions and you're curious about them. That's what will help them feel safe. Okay. Other than that, there's also other types of questions. Now, if there are kind of yes/no questions or one answer questions, and those are called, well, with us psychos, this is what we call them. We call them closed-ended questions. And that means that people aren't really given an option. When you ask somebody, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite class in school? When you ask somebody, how old are you? It has one word answer. It means you are controlling the question. and the person doesn't really have an option to answer where they actually want to share something, right? It's not what do you typically like to do if you have a free day? Now that you're still controlling a question, right? But now they can go into many different places, many different areas. It's not saying, what sport do you like to do? That's a one-word answer. When you say, what do you like to do in your free time? All of a sudden somebody can talk about anything. They can maybe even, they can each broach the subject of that they don't have any free time, or they don't want free time, or whatever, right? You're releasing control. So instead of closed-ended questions, you need to ask open-ended questions, okay? Now, I'm going to talk about two things here when you're asking questions. One, try to stay away from why. When you ask why, it's used in our culture typically as a kind of aggressive thing to put somebody on the defensive, or accuse somebody of something. So if you try to word a question in a different way than asking why did you do this? Why did this happen? Stay away. You can ask how, and all of a sudden it changes the entire context. You can say, how did that happen? I don't understand. How did that happen? All of a sudden, it's not as aggressive in some ways, right? It doesn't put somebody in a defensive place. So next, open-ended questions. I want you to ask questions that allow somebody to go where they want to go. All right. So questions like, what happened when the person said that? Okay. Again, person can take it where they want. Somebody's talking about something personal that they're sharing with themselves. Let's talk about real estate investors, okay? Somebody says, this house is worth this much, and I've done these regards, and you go, what are some of the things you love about this place, okay? Now, again, you're controlling somewhat. It's on the positive side, but they can take it wherever they want, okay? That's a really helpful question. When somebody can take things where they want, then they feel safer to explore their ideas. All right, so those are open questions versus closed questions, and curiosity rather than just control and aggression in your questions. Next is to summarize things. Get practiced at summarizing what somebody's saying. Did you know that you can actually simply summarize what somebody said? That you can say the exact same things, repeat the same words, and people will feel heard. Isn't that weird? So somebody could say to you, I felt really sad when this person did this. And if you say to them, wow, you felt really sad when they did that, if you say the exact same words, they will feel heard. Why? Because so few people actually listen to us. So what I would challenge you with in that is summarize what people are saying. Now, if it's awkward or it is a little bit creepy, don't repeat word for word over and over and over and over again, okay? But people talk about a subject, talk about a sentence or whatever. Try to summarize, and this is point number 4, try to guess what's behind what the person was saying. And if you really want to get good at this, try to guess what the person's emotions are, okay? So if somebody says, I love this old place, maybe you could say, it sounds like it's going to be, there's some sadness in leaving this place. It sounds like, you can start sentences like that. It sounds like there's some sadness. It's a statement, and yet now the person has a freedom to agree, to disagree, okay? You can even ask, you can check back and say, is that right? Again, you're showing curiosity. You're allowing somebody else to take control of the conversation. And you'll always know that you hit it on the spot, that with a good summary or going deeper with the emotion behind it, when somebody goes, yeah, exactly, that's exactly what I'm feeling. That's exactly what's going on. You know you've hit it right on the spot, and you know that you just became really safe for the person. So that's a way that you can kind of check on things. So summarizing, you can repeat the exact words. Even better, if you want to go a level deeper as you get better at this, is practice asking what the emotion is behind that, okay? Or guessing at what the emotion is. So again, going, do I hear in that maybe that there's a little bit of sadness, or maybe that, wow, you sound really excited about that. It sounds like this was a really good thing for you. It sounds like statement about an emotion, and people get, again, really comfortable with that. I love when people do this with me, okay? And so I do it for other people because I know that people hear heard, and that our hearts feel heard when we do that. Okay, last thing. Shut up. It sounds so obvious in so many ways, but I've heard so many times this expressed in different ways. You've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth, or whatever, right? Here's the thing. Most people, I said this before, most people spend most of the time in a conversation thinking about what they're going to say next. So like there's a small pause and they're waiting for the next thing to say. What I would suggest is start to be comfortable with silence. Start to be comfortable with silence. Now, not everyone else is going to be comfortable with silence. But when you are comfortable with silence, what you're doing is you're creating a space, this little space where somebody else can just be. And there's no pressure to speak and to get it all out. Okay? They can just be. And if they want to think about something for a second and then reply, that's okay. When you're shutting up, not talking about yourself, asking questions about somebody else and being curious about them, that's great. Now listen, I talk about myself when I'm in conversation with people, but typically it's to connect with people. So somebody says, I don't know, I've got a brother with cancer right now. And I go, oh, I've had people with cancer in my life. That's hard. So I just make a quick statement. I don't go into a long story about this or that or whatever. Just really quick statement and allow them to take over again. It's just creating a small connection point and then letting them do things. So you can talk, but then shut up. Let somebody else talk. Let somebody else explore what's going on for them. The best salespeople on the planet are people who ask great questions. Period. Why? Because other people feel safe with them. And when we trust others, we will do business with them. So learn to ask really good questions. Here are the action steps. So they're basically the same things as the tips that I just gave you, okay? Number one, I want you to practice using your body language. So I want you to ask somebody around you, somebody close to you, somebody that knows you well and that you trust. Don't ask like somebody who's abusive to you to do this, okay? Because you're going to be shut down. So ask somebody safe in your life. Ask them, hey, listen, when I'm asking questions, when we're having a conversation, what are some of the body language type things that I do that annoy you or where you don't feel heard or where you do feel heard? Ask those kind of questions. You're going to get great feedback. And even if somebody goes, you know what, I'm not sure. Say, can you pay attention for the next week or two and just let me know? And they will. If they're a good friend in your life, they will let you know, okay? If they're safe for you. Secondly, ask open-ended questions. I want you to do this. Same thing that my prof told me to do. I want you to go to somebody who you care about and say, listen, I want to get better at asking questions. Your relationship with you is important to me. Would you be okay if I practiced asking you really good questions? And give them the ground rules. Say, hey, listen, this is what I've learned. Close-ended questions versus open-ended questions. Let's sit on this couch or let's sit in this coffee shop or let's sit down and for like 2-3 minutes at a time, start small and you can work up. At the start, I'm only going to ask you questions. Okay? Don't summarize it when you're practicing this. Just ask questions. Say, I'm only going to ask questions, and they're going to be open-ended, which means they require more than a one-word answer. If you can answer the question in one word, then I'm going to try to ask a different question. Does that work for you? Listen, when I asked my wife, would it be okay with you? This is my homework. Would it be okay with you if we sat down and for a concentrated time, I focus on you and just listen to you and practice asking good questions? Do you know what her response was? Give me a break, right? Her response was not, get lost, you creep. Her response was, that would be wonderful. Of course people will appreciate it, okay? So ask somebody close to you. Your kids are great for this too, okay? Ask your kids. I mean, they've got to be beyond about 5-6 years old, but ask your kids to practice this. Kids are great at catching you when you're asking questions in a different way. So keep accountable with your kids. Do this with friends. Do this with whoever. They're going to feel heard. You're going to create a deeper connection with the person that you already care about, that you want to be closer to, okay? So open-ended questions. Third thing, summarize. So another time, say, hey, listen, I want to practice summarizing what you say. Be open with people. It doesn't take away from the conversation when you do this. I promise you that. You're being intentional. You're practicing. You're learning a skill that's going to increase your deepen and improve your relationship with them. So you can say, hey, listen, I'm going to try to summarize. And this is also the next point, okay? So you're going to venture guesses and you're going to summarize what they've said. So you're going to say exactly what they've said at times. And other times you're going to summarize, maybe they spoke for 5 minutes and you're summarizing just in one sentence exactly what they've said. And other times you're going to guess at the emotion behind it. If you need help with this, connect with somebody who's good at it. If you've got time with me, I'm not sure which type of program you're in when you're reviewing this video, but if you have access to somebody who's really good at asking questions or is skilled in this way, learn more. Google open-ended questions or summarizing, and you will learn a ton of things about that, okay? Guessing emotions, communication, anything like that. The next thing, and the last thing, is practice shutting up. Practice a conversation with somebody, and do this, for 2-3 minutes at a time. You don't have to do it for an hour at a time, but practice shutting up. asking a question and then shutting up. And you can combine some of these things, right? So ask a question and then you don't give feedback. You don't summarize, you simply ask and then listen. And that doesn't mean you sit like a statue and just stare at them. Okay, again, this isn't about being creepy. But what you can do is be relaxed and nod and be engaged, and maybe instead of speaking, practice just using your body language to engage with somebody. And then ask somebody, what's creepy about that? How am I engaging that's really good? Tell me, give me some tips of things that I could change. Okay, watch other people in your life who do ask good questions, who you feel safe with. Ask them, what did they do? And they might not even be conscious of it, but learn these things. And as you do this, this is going to make a difference. I'm going to just summarize this. This is going to make a difference in your relationships, in your love relationships, in your family relationships, in your friendships, relationships with strangers. I've spent time with people where after a couple of minutes of talking on a bus or a bus stop or a C train, I live in Calgary or whatever, for just a couple of minutes I spend time with somebody and they go, I've shared things with you that I wouldn't share with anyone else ever. And why is that? It's simply because they feel safe. And if people feel safe with you, they'll go deep really quick. It might even freak you out. Okay, well, I had to get used to this when I was first doing it. Now, I thought I was really good at asking questions and listening to people before I got this training in doing my degree in counseling psychology, and yet I learned that I was terrible at it, and that's okay. So even if you believe you're a good listener, I want you to practice these things and learn, how can I do this better? This will improve your relationships, like I said. It's going to improve your business and your investing, because you're going to be able to negotiate with people on a completely different level. You're going to be able to connect with people on a different level. And that's a really useful skill to have, all right? Not only with money partners, but also with people that are selling their property to you or whoever, all right? Practice this. Enjoy it. It's actually a really fun process if you're putting in effort and you grow in it, because you're going to fail at this, and yet you can laugh about it, you can enjoy it and grow in it, and it really will change your life. Enjoy it. Have a great week.